All right, this is the Cortez City Council regular meeting. Today is Tuesday, February 14th, 2023, and the time is now 7:30 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We'll move on to the roll call. Linda?
Yazzie? Here. Rainey?
Here.
Dobry?
Here.
Kiefhofer?
Here.
Spruill?
Here.
DeHaven? Medina?
Here. All right, we have a quorum tonight, and then I'll ask approval of the agenda. Would anyone like to revise anything on the agenda or have a motion to approve as is?
Madam Mayor, I move that the council approve the agenda of February 14th, 2023.
Second.
Motion made by Yazzie, seconded by Dobry.
Spruill?
Aye.
Kiefhofer?
Aye.
Dobry?
Aye.
Rainey?
Aye.
Yazzie?
Aye.
Medina?
Aye. All right, we'll move on to number 2 on our agenda, the consent agenda. The listing under consent agenda is a group of items to be acted on in a single motion and vote. This agenda is designed to expedite the handling of limited routine matters by City Council. Either the public or a council member may request that an item may be removed from the consent agenda at this time prior to council's vote. A, approval of the council work session / special meeting and agenda minutes for January 24th, 2023. B, approval of the expenditure list for February 14th, 2023 City Council meeting. C, approval of a renewal hotel and restaurant liquor license for the Wigglin' Pig LLC, DBA The Wigglin' Pig, located at TBD Cortez. And D, approval of a change in premise application for Safeway Store 46 Inc., DBA Safeway Store number 1892, located at 1580 East Main Street, Cortez.
I move that council approve the consent agenda as presented. Second.
Motion made by Rainey and seconded by Dobry.
Kiefhofer?
Aye.
Dobry?
Aye.
Spruill?
Aye.
Yazzie?
Aye.
Rainey?
Aye.
Medina?
Aye. All right, we're moving on to number 3, public participation. And just a reminder that this section is for any comments that, for anything not on the agenda tonight. When we do have a comment card. Okay. All right. So there's no limit to the number of speakers, although public comment will be held to an overall time limit of 30 minutes. Speakers have 3 minutes per person, may only speak once, and may not cede time to another commenter. So I'd like to invite Paul Emergiati to speak for our first public comment. Yep. Come up to the mic, make sure it's on, that the green button, state your name and address, and then Arlena here will give you visual cues for when you have a minute left, 30 seconds, and your time's up. Oh, make sure your microphone's on. And you can use either one.
Okay, does that work? Okay, my name is Paul Armaggiati. I live at 317 North Chestnut Street in Cortez. And this is in regard to the rezoning at the bottom of Chestnut and Empire. And I just have a couple.
So actually, Paul, because we're doing a public hearing for that, so we'll actually have a public hearing section for that specific one.
Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, any other public comments? Okay, we'll close that section and we'll move on to number 4 on our agenda. 4A is our 2022 December financial statements presented by Kelly Koski, our finance director.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. In your board packets this time were the year-end financial statements for December of 2022. As always, they're broken down by revenue and expenses, which are labeled at the top of each page, and they're also broken down by the department. Just a couple of items to note. The year-end actual net income for 2022 was $2,658,350. Overall, at the end of 2022, the city had a pretty respectable days of unrestricted cash available of 276 days. And some good news from our grant department. We received federal funding from US DOT for Safe Streets and Roads for All grant in the amount of $203,390. The Safe Streets for All grant assists communities that don't currently have a roadway safety plan in place to reduce roadway fatalities, and it lays the groundwork for competitive set of actions. This will also help us in the future with additional grant applications that we plan to apply to with the federal government. Does anybody have any other questions?
Is that money then just for the plans and not necessarily actual construction?
True,
Okay.
yes.
The unrestricted cash, is that all general fund, or is that various funds as well?
That's all general fund.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We are going to move on to 5 on our agenda, public hearings. 5A is ordinance number 1315, Series 2023, and this is for the rezoning of the law at North Chestnut and West Empire, presented by City Planner Nancy Dosdall.
See if this will come up. Thank you and good evening. So the first public hearing here tonight is for the rezone. The property does not yet have an address and has a complicated legal. So the easiest way to describe it is at on the southwest corner of North Chestnut and West Empire. Just to talk first and describe a little bit of what the proposal is. The property is currently zoned R1, which is single-family residential. The request is to revise that to R2, multifamily residential. Given the size of the parcel, I wanted to let people understand what difference that makes to the potential use. It's currently a vacant parcel that's for sale, for development. So right now, the R1 zoning would allow that to be divided into 3 single-family lots for 3 single-family units. The change to R2 would increase that density. It would allow a total of, it's got options under R2. It's a little more flexible zone. So they could either go with 4 single-family lots, slightly smaller than the R1, or if they wanted to build duplexes, they could build 3 duplexes with 6 units total, or 8 townhome units attached at market rate. With our new density change for affordable housing, they could go to 12 affordable units. And that's all assuming they could meet setbacks and provide adequate infrastructure, etc. I think process, so this is the second reading, but it's the full public hearing on the request. To locate you, and the colors here are important, the property here is circled. It's currently vacant parcel. To the west is, I believe it's known as the Rust Mobile Home Park. The blue color is all currently the R1 single-family zone district. That Rust Mobile Home Park is directly west, and that is a non-conforming use in the zone. As obviously the density is higher than that single-family density I was just speaking of. The red color here is commercial zoning. So what we've got is commercial zoning here, non-conforming R1 mobile home park, and then the parcel here. Just a better zoom in and aerial of it. So it's 0.59 acres, which is large and obviously available to be subdivided in the R1 single family. And then that gives you a better shot of where it is in the world with adjacent to the mobile home park. So the criteria, I'm going to go over a little bit and discussion. This property is located in a little bit of an unusual area for the city, with the properties being zoned immediately north, east, and south being zoned for single family. They're not all developed that way, but they're all zoned that way. To the west is that non-conforming use of the mobile home park and commercial development over to the northeast. The applicant, and I guess I should note that the applicant could not make it tonight due to weather, but they still wanted the project to be heard tonight. So they did express to us that they had marketed it for several years, trying to sell it. There was lots of interest for multifamily development, given the mobile home park and the location close to the highway, but they couldn't get any interest for single-family development on the vacant parcel. So they came in to request the rezone to fit better, in their view, with the neighborhood and hopefully establish some new uses on the site. So the criteria that you need to use for a rezoning is up on the board here. I'm going to talk through it a little bit. The first criteria is whether or not that existing zone for the property was adopted in error. And of course, it's not really possible to determine whether the property was zoned in error, but I would say that in this case it appears unlikely. The neighborhood on 3 sides is zoned and developed with single-family homes in conformance with the zoning. It's the older mobile home park located immediately to the west of the property. That is, however, considered legal non-conforming, so it was in place before the zoning was put on it. Perhaps in an attempt to encourage redevelopment of the property. The next criteria to review is, has there been a change in character in the neighborhood over the years? It does not appear that this neighborhood has experienced many changes in recent years, except perhaps for the deterioration of the property to the west, which, given its non-conforming status, is likely to continue. There does appear to be a need in the neighborhood for more of a transition from the highway corridor, perhaps an existing mobile home park, to the developed single-family neighborhoods and homes to the east. The next criteria is whether there's a need for the proposed rezoning in the area or community. We did have a recent housing study for the Cortez area, which demonstrated a need for additional housing opportunities, especially for multifamily development at a more affordable level. The existing property owner, as I stated earlier, has listed the property for sale, had interest from several individuals interested in developing it for multifamily, but not for single-family homes. Of course, there's no guarantee it would be affordable, although we do at least have now a density bonus in effect that should they want to go with income-restricted units, they could get a few more units for sale with that. The next criteria are the proposed uses compatible with the surrounding area or uses, or can adverse impacts be mitigated? The area is currently a mix of land uses, even though its zoning is single-family, with both single-family homes, existing older mobile home park, and some multifamily in the nearby area. Commercial uses are northwest of the parcel. So a small multifamily development, if well-designed with adequate parking, could be still be considered compatible with the surrounding area, I believe. If multifamily development were to be proposed in the future, additional review and public hearings would be required that could help with the mitigation of those impacts. Are there benefits derived by the community by granting the proposed rezoning? The rezoning to allow for multifamily development in the midst of a housing crisis should provide the dual benefits of providing for additional housing and likely spurring development of a vacant parcel. While any housing proposed on the site is not guaranteed to be affordable, most often multifamily development is sold or rented at the lower end of market rates, or certainly less than a single-family home. Let's keep going here. Are the adequate facilities available? This is an infill development with existing roads, sewer, water, utilities in place. Not really a concern. Is the proposal in conformance with policies, intents, and requirements of the comprehensive plan? And that one is pretty definitive. The comprehensive plan includes numerous goals that support the requested rezone and encourage additional housing in the area. So just really briefly, the comprehensive plan promotes infill opportunities, encourages you to build within existing parcels, encourage infill development on vacant land, which will complement the established neighborhood of the character, strongly encourage new development proposed on surplus, vacant, or underutilized land. You get the theme there in the comp plan. Encourage the expansion of the housing supply to meet the needs of current and future residents. Strongly encourage the development of new housing, again, on surplus, vacant, and underutilized land. They even suggest that in that plan, appropriate incentives to develop that additional housing. And then, in addition to single-family homes, promote the development of new duplexes and multifamily housing opportunities for families. So, and then the final issue is, does the proposed change constitute spot zoning? And final criteria. In this case, if we just look at the map, you might think, well, that it will be a spot of R2 multifamily zoning in an area that's pretty consistently R1 single family. However, though, even though this is surrounded by the R1 zone, it does, given the fact that this on the western boundary is an existing non-conforming use that actually continues all the way out to the highway and the commercial use areas, it seems that perhaps it's a little bit more of a complicated picture than the colors on the map show you. If you look at the neighborhood itself, it does appear that a multifamily use in there does seem consistent with the area, especially this portion of the area, which is much higher density than the existing zoning would lead you to believe. There are also a few scattered additional multifamily developments in this neighborhood, but I believe that this strong use here of the mobile home park really and this property being immediately adjacent to that points to the issue that this isn't really spot zoning. It's appropriate given the existing patterns in the area. So with that, oops, I somehow got out of that. Got that right? Staff and the Planning Commission have reviewed this and are recommending approval. All right. We'll go there. Of the proposed rezoning. And I'm available. I'm here if you have any questions.
I appreciate you highlighting that there's parcels around it that are non-conforming. I just wonder how many of our parcels, as we talk about rezoning tonight, like how many out there are legally non-conforming? Is that?
I do not have that answer.
Is that something we can capture even? I mean.
We could try.
as we update the land use code over the next
I think,
year?
yeah, that would be appropriate to do that, for sure.
This lot has been, I mean, obviously it hasn't been developed at all, but it's been on the market several times, zoned as R1, and there's really not been very much interest at all in developing it as R1.
That's what I'm,
And would that be attributed mostly to the fact that there's the non-conforming use to the west?
that's what was explained to me by the Realtor and the landowner, so, yes. That the adjacent property to the west makes it less desirable for single-family home development.
I had that same concern about the spot zoning, just based on the area. I did just want to check in with our attorney on that side of things and make sure that we're.
Yes, Councilman. So spot zoning isn't entirely dependent upon the specific zone district. It goes more to the uses and the surrounding uses and the nature. Here you're going from residential 1 to residential 2, which, although a more dense use, it's still residential. I think if you were going to zone this as industrial or something like that, it would maybe have a much stronger argument that it's spot zoning. But I think considering the even more dense use immediately adjacent to it in the non-conforming lot, I think this would not constitute spot zoning.
All right, do we have any more council discussion, or I'll open this up for the public hearing?
I just was curious, Nancy and maybe Rachel Marchbanks might be able to answer this. Do we have any sort of language out there encouraging development of like an infill type situation? Okay.
So the comprehensive plan is very strong on encouraging infill, and those statements I was reading were direct from the comprehensive plan.
Okay, I'm going to open this up for the public hearing. So citizens come to the front and just like public comment? Okay. All right, Paul, do you want to come up first?
Thanks. Paul Armaggiati, 317 North Chestnut Street. Just a couple of observations. I have lived at my property for over 22 years, and I need to travel that route every day to go to work. And it would have been nice to have that map, but as you go down to that intersection, it's kind of blind. There's a rise that comes from the east. So you really have to pull out well beyond the stop sign to see traffic. Now, on a busy day as it is, if you're keeping your eye to the left or to the west, and there are many cars that aren't paying attention to the speed limit, come over that hill, it's kind of dangerous. And I think you might be adding to that by increasing the traffic. The other observation is, as you get down to the intersection of 491 and Empire, if anyone ever has to take a left-hand turn going south, they've got to cross over, and that can back up traffic for quite a ways, depending on what's on 491. So anyway, I just hope if this is rezoned, that people are considering, not only that, but the implications that it's going to cause for traffic. And the biggest thing is that rise, and you almost have to be there to see it, because a lot of people coming from the east tend to, if they're going to make a left-hand turn going south on Chestnut, they cut that short. So again, if you're looking this way and somebody's coming over that rise and cutting short, it makes it kind of dangerous in the mornings. So anyway, that's it. One other little thing, and I don't know if this is even related, but there's been a great increase in tractor trailers coming down Chestnut, even though that road is marked no trucks. And these aren't any of the trucks from Bluebird. They're just people shortcutting through town. So again, I don't know if that'll do anything to traffic with possible rezone. So anyway, thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Al. All right, do we have anyone else from the public who would like to comment on this particular ordinance? Okay, I'll close the public comment section. In terms, because what Paul brings up, I'm also concerned about driveways, and one of the agency comments, the access for this property, is that something we're going to deal with when it comes to the site plan? Okay.
Well, I think that's a really valid point. You know, we're talking about going from R1 to R2, but that doesn't mean that there's anybody necessarily waiting in the wings for some of the reasons that we mentioned before, when it was zoned, or when it currently is zoned R1. So.
Can I ask a question about that road in particular has a no truck sign? Do we have like a weight limit for that? How does someone determine that they're a truck that shouldn't be on that road?
We don't really have truck routes established, so not necessarily.
Okay. Because I know that's kind of been a concern for a while for trucks that miss that turn to go, north on 491.
Yeah, it is a concern, and then there are some local trucks that need to get through there for the mill and so on.
So if I can make a couple of comments, I've lived here, of course, all my life, and I lived about 2 blocks from where he's talking, and it's been vacant as long as I can remember. I don't remember ever seeing anything in that lot. And also the traffic that he speaks of, I understand exactly what he's saying. But what I think is important for the public to know is that even though it's been rezoned, or if it's rezoned, that is all taken into consideration before they're allowed to put anything up. And it's just something I wanted to share, that we don't do that now. That's all decided when or if somebody purchases that property and wants to put a multi-dwelling on it.
All right, does anyone have a motion or decision they want to propose?
I move that council approve on second and final reading ordinance number 1315, series 2023, rezoning property owned by Donita Hedgewood, a 5.59 acre parcel located on the southwest corner of North Chestnut Street and West Empire Street, also known as CRSP Edition, lots 2-8, block 1, B612, P165-66, from R1 residential single family to R2 residential multifamily.
Second.
Motion made by Sproul and seconded by Yazzie.
Dobry,
Aye.
Yazzie,
Aye.
Rainey,
Aye.
Sproul,
Aye.
Kiefhoffer,
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. Okay, we're going to move on to 5B on the agenda, ordinance number 1314, series 2023. Potential rezoning at 1345 South Broadway, presented by Nancy Dosdall.
Okay, this one is a request to rezone, in this case from R1 single family residential to C Commercial Highway. The property here is located at 1345 South Broadway. As you can see, it's a small parcel right now. The blue, again, the colors are important. The red is currently all commercial land. It's mostly vacant in this location. The existing property here that is proposed for rezoning is just over a half an acre. It has an existing building on it. There is just to make this clear, the current applicants, James and Jean Wooten, currently own the parcel in question. The small parcel here, which would stay R1 under their proposal, and then they do own a big portion of this commercial property out front also. Get this, get me in the right place. The site right now is the site of the Wooten's home and Yellow Car Winery. We're going to go into a little bit more background on this parcel because we'll get to why is there a winery in this location now if it's zoned single-family residential. Property history, in the past, it appears to be constructed. This is from the assessor's photo, and it's several years old. This was it appears to be a commercial building when it was constructed. It's been the home of churches. It's been the home of offices for hospice of Montezuma County in the recent past until it was purchased by the Wootens in approximately 2018, I believe. Okay, so why is there a winery in a residential zone anyway? Very good question. The winery itself was approved as a home business by previous administrations. I know there's a lot of text on there. I did want you to see that home businesses can be allowed in a residential neighborhood. However, there are some strict requirements to that, for a home business. It was approved by staff. However, there have been some concerns with the operation of that existing winery under the existing permits. So here's what was approved in 2018. The staff at that time made the findings that the area where the wine bottling and tasting met the square footage requirements for a home business, that they would not have more than 4 persons at the winery at one time, that traffic would not go north of the property line to impact the residences to the north, that it was formerly Hospice of Montezuma County or commercial uses on the property, and that there was adequate parking. They did apply conditions with hours of operation, and they also stated that the applicant must comply with state requirements for a winery. They were at that time working with Linda Smith, who does the alcohol business permitting. So why are we here if they were approved? Well, in October of 2022, adjacent property owners in residential property brought it to our attention that this property was actually approved. Well, they questioned how it was approved, and with some digging, we found the approval for the home business. We determined that the way the business was operating was not in compliance with mostly the bold issues here with a home business, and we issued them a code violation last October. The major issues that we had with violation from the home business were business signage, loud music, after hours, more than 4 patrons on site at one time, and RVs on site. There's a weird provision in there about 2-axle parking in the home business regulations. So with the issue of that violation, the applicants had really 2 options, which is to pull back. Actually, they only have 1 option, which was to pull back and comply with those home business criteria. Right now, they could not operate in violation anymore. The only way to operate legally with the way they had been operating was to request a rezone of the property to commercial. Which is obviously what they did. I want to be clear that just rezoning the property really won't change anything. They will still be required to operate under those home business regulations until they apply for a site plan and fully legalize the business. Again, if it gets rezoned, that's the next step that they would need to comply with. So tonight, even if the zoning were to be changed, it doesn't necessarily change anything on the property. It changes the designation and would allow them the flexibility to apply for a site plan for a new commercial business. Through the site plan criteria, we need to put the full code in place to see, to meet all commercial requirements. A criteria for a rezone is the same as we just went over with the previous request. In this case, I'm going to talk through a little bit of this. The first question about was the existing zone for the property adopted in error is a little bit less clear in this case. Of course, we could never know for sure why the property was zoned the way it was, and I believe you might hear some testimony to that effect here. But it is clear that the property has been commercially assessed in the past, as recently as 2018, that the structure itself appears to be a commercial type structure. However, the property was zoned R1 residential. So that is a bit of a question as to whether or not the appropriate zone was ever put on this property. Going through the other criteria, the neighborhood in the area may have some commercial development. It does not appear that there have been many recent changes. There is current concern with the access situation, which has perhaps stymied very recent proposals for adding commercial uses to the area. And that is one of the big issues that would need to be addressed to allow fully permitted commercial development on the property. Going through the rest of the questions, the rezoning as requested is being requested to allow the winery to come into compliance with existing land use codes and to expand to some degree. The area is currently a mix of land uses, including some single-family homes, rural properties, existing commercial uses. The neighbors to the immediate north have expressed concerns regarding adverse impacts from the existing use. And again, should this rezoning be approved, I'm sure they're going to speak again tonight. A site plan for the existing expanding uses of the winery would be required, and at that time perhaps could help to mitigate those impacts. The rezoning to commercial would, when we went to, are there benefits? No. Derived by the community or area by granting the proposed rezoning. If the rezoning is granted, it would allow perhaps a locally grown business to operate legally and perhaps expand, which could lead to additional sales tax. Regarding adequate facilities, right now, water, sewer, and sewer utilities are all available. Access, as we have stated a little bit, is difficult at this time and would probably require improvement at the site plan level of review. Regarding the comprehensive plan and whether or not this proposal is in conformance with it, I did find a number of goals that do appear to support the requested rezone. The ones include sustaining a well-balanced and diverse local economy, to incubate the development and expansion of niche goods and services, to improve the image of Cortez as a tourist destination, and to respond to the needs of the agribusiness economy to ensure sustainability of the community's rural character, promoting efforts to establish a year-round marketplace, and encouraging the distribution of local products at local stores. Regarding the spot zoning, this one's is a lot more clear than the last one we looked at. The property is already on is adjacent on two sides to commercial zoning, and it has one side adjacent to residential zoning. The property to the west is in the unincorporated county. We have comments from agencies related somewhat to, well, we heard a lot of no issues. One said that the property has been commercial for over 25 years, and thinking that it predated the land use code. Access gets brought up in some of the comments, which would require improvement. The Planning Commission struggled with the proposal a little bit, but did recommend approval at their meeting, finding that it did meet the criteria for rezoning. We've given you alternatives. We do have a staff recommendation to approve the requested rezone. Get to that correctly. Finding that the existing zoning may have been adopted in error. The community would benefit from additional commercial use of the property. Adequate facilities appear to be available or could be provided to meet the needs of the development, and the proposal does appear to be in conformance with policies, intents, and requirements of the comprehensive plan. Questions? I'm going to leave the map up this time.
I just
We went on.
was curious, would changing the zoning cause any more compliance with required inspections and the parking issues and some of the things that the neighbors are concerned about?
Well, changing the zoning itself will not do that at all, but it would allow the applicants to apply and submit a site plan to the Planning Commission and then City Council to show how they can comply with parking and all the other requirements of the land use code.
Okay, before we get too much into it, I'd like to invite the applicant up next, and then we'll hear from the public, and then we'll do our discussion. So that way we kind of hear everything, and then we'll ask our questions if that's all right with council for that setup.
Mayor, if I can just ask Nancy, would it be possible to maybe put a map up there for reference in case the public wants to do that? Can you?
Well, I was trying to leave it up, but it came off, so I can put it back up.
We get some IT assistance?
IT's running, we'll have it. Oh, but now I'm gonna have to log back in, darn it. Give me a minute, somebody asked a question. Well, I don't know why it's not going up, but.
There we go.
Does that one work for you?
Yeah, that'll work, Nancy. Maybe we can just make it full screen. There we go. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, so we'll invite the applicant to come up and speak.
Good evening. I'm Jim Wooten with Yellow Car Country Wines, and we do reside at 1345 South Broadway in Cortez, and I am the owner and operator of the winery. Give you a quick overview. We purchased the property where Yellow Car sits now in November of 18, and we were thinking that it was already commercial per the discussion that you've already heard from Nancy. All of the uses before the property were businesses. When we purchased the property, it was the previous offices for Hospice of Montezuma County, and the building had sat empty for 3 years before we purchased it. And before that, it was also a couple of churches, and we understand there might have even been a business in there at some point. We bought it so that our handicapped daughter could have the accommodations she needed while allowing us to open our winery in the back 20% of the building. We went through all of the parameters for getting our winery licensed, and Yellow Car Wines opened in October of 19. Of course, COVID hit us in 20, and that did make life interesting, but we made it through, and then 21 and 22 have been much better years. As mentioned, we do strive to be in the niche market of fruit wines and honey meads. The government calls it honey wine. They don't acknowledge the word mead, which is up for discussion at a much higher level than us. And mead is also making a comeback in the nation, and so that is one of the items that draws individuals to our location. We make a whole bunch of different kinds of wines: apricot, plum, apple, cinnamon, peach, apricot jalapeno, which we can turn into a Bloody Mary, but it is wine. It is not. There is no other hard alcohol or anything else that is in it. Our honey, as much as possible, is sourced local, as well as the fruit. We're a member of the Dolores and Cortez Chambers of Commerce. We have taken the leading edge class to the small business development centers, and you can see the rest of the items there that we participate in. We spend a lot of time in Dolores participating with them in the festivals that go on there, and this past year we also had the privilege of being at the Mancus Brew Fest. We do believe in giving back to the community. We have donated wine or money and sponsored many of the organizations that you all see there on your list, everything from Obie's Angels to Amani Youth Partnership, the Mesa Verde Foundation, and then on down through Louis Areola, all the way down through the Louis Areola PTO. Once we realized we were not listed as commercial and were restricted to only 4 people at a time at our business location, we're now coming before you to make the appropriate changes. We do own the adjacent land, which is that whole big orange streak that you see running there to the south and to the east. We do own all of that, and we hold it under a company called J4G Holdings, LLC. And as Nancy has also pointed out, it is our goal at some point to move the entire winery operation to that southern southern tip of land that's orange there, that is ours to own. This application that we bring before you to go commercial tonight is just a tie-over step so that we can move away from being home-based to commercial, to give us more freedom to operate, so that we can raise more funds through the business to be able to move the entire operation south, which would move us ways away from many of the discussions that you'll hear just a little bit. We do have RVs that park on our property. There are no hookups. City ordinance does allow for RVs to be parked on private property. Where we park ours at the winery is on the orange side, so it actually sits on commercial property. When we had our meeting with the city for the code violations, they did agree that where we park the RVs is a legal place to put them. They're never there for any more than 2 or 3 nights. City code draws the line at 30 days. We'd never even approach that length of time. Traffic really will be no more impacted than what it is now. That frontage road that runs along there services us, 4x4 Auto, Kidd Automotive, a 13-house subdivision. I mean, there's numerous businesses up and down that frontage road. Maybe 10, 15 more cars a day. We're not going to impact the use of that one particular pass-through there 4x4 any more than we do now. And of course, that's part of what we keep going back and forth with CDOT on, is CDOT at one point even told us all of the annexes that you all know about that go off 491 to the frontage road didn't even exist. So of course, then I had them look up on their maps, and they were kind of like, oh, they do exist. So lots of discussion on CDOT on 491 and the frontage road. Sir, down on the end, you asked about inspections. We have had fire inspections at the winery. We have passed them. We have had health inspections at the winery, and we have passed them. We have all of our Liquor Enforcement Division licenses, and we have been inspected by the Liquor Enforcement Division, and we have passed that inspection. I just want to make wine and sell it. That's all I want to do. You know, it helps us take care of our daughter, who is a C2 tetraplegia on a respirator, and that's a whole other story. We won't go into that tonight. And I think we paid $3,000 or $4,000 of city taxes. We've never missed a payment. We've never been late. We've paid all of our excise taxes. We've paid all of our federal taxes. I don't mind paying taxes because that means I did good too. So, you know, it's okay with me. We want to bring tourism dollars to the area. The letters, the package that was presented to you, one is a letter of recommendation from an individual who comes to the winery. We have 65 5-star Google reviews. The couple that was on our patio earlier this evening before we came here said they have never been any place that had that many 5-star Google reviews. Another note in there is from our Harvest Host guests. Those are the RVs that come, and you'll see letters of thanks from them. And then most of that in the rest of the package is all letters that have been written to us, to the winery, thanking us for what we've done, how we've supported the community, and all of those various kinds of things. We want to do it right, which is why we come before you now to go commercial. We understand there's going to be a site plan and other things required before we can fully open up. And we've already talked with Nancy and Rachel that they will know when you all give us our yes that probably tomorrow we will be in their office saying, okay, it's site plan time, let's go. Any questions Susan, any further comment?
Susan Lysak, 27933 Road P. Dolores. You know, we want to have more commercial businesses in here. We want to promote economic development. You know, we were hit hard in this area with COVID. It's hard to bring more tourism dollars in here, and we are a small business just trying to bring more to the community and then to give back to the community. So like Jim said, this is only a temporary. Once we have the new winery building open right at the frontage road, we hope, we're still going to keep what we have if this goes commercial. We still want to keep it commercial. We'll use it for storage of wine. We'll use it for some production and some testing facility. So we're going to keep it commercial even after we move out of what's considered residential right now down to the bottom. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Mayor, if I could, I've got a question for Ms. Lysak. You handed me a bunch of letters, what appears to be letters. Are these the letters that Mr. Wooten was describing? Yes. Okay, if you want them to be part of the record, we'll give them to the council. And Mayor, if you so desire, you can take a 5-minute break or something and allow members to read the letters before you vote, because they will become part of the record.
Yeah, I would like to make sure that we read those, but I want to hear from our
Sure.
folks that are here tonight too first. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to, I'm going to open this up for public hearing. We're not going to have a time limit for, per person how long you speak. I want to make sure everyone's heard. I also want to respect that it's really snowy out there, and we do want folks to get home safely tonight, so we don't want to be here all night. So I will go ahead and open this for the public hearing, and then individuals who want to speak will come up to the microphone. Make sure it's on in green. You'll state your name and address, and then tell us your comments. All right. So anyone like to start us off? And I do want to recognize that that letters that have been sent made it into our packet and have been read by council prior to this meeting.
Can you hear me? Good evening. I'm Sharon Lindsay. I live at 1201 South Broadway. I have lived there 43 years. He moved into our area, and we are not nosy neighbors. We're not loud neighbors, but I will tell you the history of the what used to be the Jehovah's Witness Church first. There used to be a little house right behind there, which is now the yellow car thing. And the man that lived there built that church on his property, was Jehovah's Witness, and I'm not sure how many years they were there, but once they moved, I think he moved, I don't know. Anyway, don't laugh at me, please, I'm nervous. But it's just true. We have lived there our whole life. Well, I have lived there most of my adult life. My husband and his brother have lived in that whole area their whole lives. And once the church was sold, which being a Jehovah's Witness church, at least that one, never had a window in it. It only had doors, a front door and a back door. They had services on Sundays, every Sunday, and then funerals, weddings, and all that. And not one time was there ever a party out in the parking lot or anywhere else drinking and making loud noise. That's what is very irritating when you come home at night and you're tired. And then when the Jehovah's Witness sold to hospice, they put the windows and the door, the glass door, in that building. And when it was on my mother and dad's anniversary in 1999, June 30th, there was a fire in the canyon. That whole canyon, I was outside painting the porch, and I thought I seen something, and I ran down, looked, and here's the canyon on fire, called the fire department, ran over and told the people in the hospice there was a fire, and they all just, what do we do? Started grabbing their computers, and it wasn't little computers like this. It was those big old hefty, and everybody's unplugging them, grabbing them, probably 15 cars in the parking lot. Now imagine that, and the canyon's on fire, which this is the second time that canyon has burnt, and I don't mean a little, I mean it burnt, and 20 or 15 cars trying to get out that one little driveway there, and the fire department trying to get up in there at the same place, a lot of confusion, and Grant and Tammy's house almost burned, because I've got our garden hoses out. Thank God it was in the summer when we had them running. Set them up. I sent mine on my roof and got hoses to help until the fire department got there. The frontage road, and I'm not sure if that is the frontage road that's up there on that orange spot or not, but anyway, it's probably impossible now for a two-vehicle opposing directions to come on. It's hard, no one hardly maintains it at all. And this very last snow we had, you couldn't even get down that road because the city doesn't take care of it and the highway didn't take care of it, highway department. So when you have all that congestion, and I know that the ambulance and fire department has been to their house numerous times. So what if all that happened right when this fire was going on and nobody could get her out, which I didn't realize it was your daughter that was sick. But you need to think about that. It's very dangerous, and that's the second time that that whole canyon has almost burnt. And not just that, the highway, we can sit on our front porch, and matter of fact, we have been sitting on our front porch, when there's car wrecks and car accidents on that highway, practically in the same spots every time, and it's right as the highway narrows from the city lights to that goes south. There's been very many wrecks between there and that bridge at the bottom. Anyway, and at times there are semi-trucks that sit on both sides of that highway. They will park to go over to the dispensary and get their whatever they get over there and get in their truck and take off. And being a policeman, you probably, I don't know, Dennis probably never seen it, but there's been plenty of policemen that have seen it. And they don't want, that's their way. Some of them will put their little things out to the arrow signs to beware that they're there. Others won't. They sneak around the back. I just watched one the other day do it, go on the inside of the thing so he doesn't want anybody to know it, obviously, that he's going over into the dispensary because he's driving a truck. But anyway, so there's a lot of traffic and congestion from that, and probably within the last year, we have seen or heard, I think, 6 wrecks right in that area on the highway. One day, I don't remember if that was last year or a little later, I was sitting there and I actually seen the guy just fly right off the highway and almost into that dispensary that's there now. And how he made it out, I don't know. But anyway, it's a dangerous spot. And the other thing, I have grandchildren. I have 6 grandchildren, 10 to 1 year old. And I take care of them very often because their parents work at night, they're EMS, and anyway. And when there's a loud party going on down next door to us, I don't want them hearing that. I don't want them, it's not right. They're little kids and they don't need to be around it. And I don't know, I had other things and I don't know what else to tell you. Oh, and if he was doing the right thing at first, I don't understand the porta potty right in the front of my driveway. Now, how would you like to drive home at night or anytime, and the first thing you see going home to your home is a porta potty sitting right in your driveway entrance? And there is hay bales all the way around there, and if somebody's out there smoking after or from the trailers or wherever, if the trailers and campers that park in the evening, which I have seen them over on that side, but if one of those sparks happens during the summer and it's dry and they start on fire, first thing that everybody's going to want to do is get their campers out of there. You have to worry about your daughter being out. So think of that congestion in there with emergency vehicles coming and everybody else trying to leave at the same time. And I think that's all I have to say. So please consider that. And the noise is what is very irritating from the partying and drinking and the music. It has always been a residential area. And anyway, that it was a residential to start with until it was a church, and I don't know if that is truly classified as a commercial or not. And as far as I know, it has always only been a Jehovah's Witness church and then the hospice. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Do we have our next speaker? Anyone else who'd like to?
My name is Jim Reeser. I live at 953 Livesay Drive, Cortez, Colorado. And I've known the Wooten family for about 3 years now. Since just a few months after they started the winery, they have been outstanding citizens in the community. They have brought a significant investment to their business and plan a larger investment. And the property that is in question here had been used as a commercial type property. Churches and nonprofits do generate a lot of traffic, and they certainly did. This particular business probably does not generate any more traffic than has ever been there before. Fires do occur in the canyon. They occur almost everywhere where there's dry, wild land that is not adequately served with water. We've been in a 25-year drought so far, and I don't expect that's going to change radically anytime soon. The ability of our fire departments to extinguish such fires improves every year. At least I hope it does. They come back to asking for more bond money to buy more fire trucks and so on, and they've done an excellent job in controlling wildland fires close to the city limits. The fact that this was a property used in a commercial way with the church and hospice, and the fact that it was zoned commercial before it was ceded to the city of Cortez, makes me think that the not changing that zoning when it came into the city to commercial, keeping it in the same character it had existed in for many years, was just an error, and that error would be corrected by granting this C1 type of zoning. The economic benefit and the social benefit to Cortez far outweighs the noise that occurs when you have, I'm trying to remember, I think I went to 2, maybe 3 of your Friday evening events, which is the only time he has the live music. They were a Christian music group, and the band stopped at 8:30. They wanted to honor the ability of their neighbors to enjoy their evening, so they didn't let the live music go on past 8:30. I can't see how any of that is the least bit offensive to small children or fully grown adults. And the other thing is that whatever noise is made is an enjoyment of the music there. It's an enjoyment of the collegiality, the community, the friendships that are born at that location. This is not like some bar full of drunks who are trying to fight in the parking lot or run donuts in the parking lot with their souped-up vehicles. And if you want that, come down to my neighborhood in the summertime and listen to all of the people who are fine-tuning their hot rods for the races on Fridays and Saturday nights. Now, I like my neighbors, but sometimes that noise gets to be painfully loud, and it certainly isn't anything like the nice music that the Wootons provide at their location. I think it's a terrific idea to restore this to a commercial zoning, which is what it was for many years, and to enable the Wooton family to continue to invest their time, money, and energies into making our community stronger, better, and more interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. All right, next.
I will be referencing those who didn't
Okay.
get in the packet. Good evening. My name is Tammy Lindsay. I reside at 1205 South Broadway. Thank you, council members and mayor. I have provided a letter along with photos that are in your council packets. I understand you got those. That states our concerns and appreciate that you have and will consider them. Everything from the history on down to the criteria necessary for rezoning. I wish to expand and address some of these issues in greater detail. Item D of the criteria zoning amendments address the issue of compatibility, and adverse impacts. For some time now, we've been dealing with the issues of noise, lights, setbacks, fire safety, and access to our property. The now enclosed patio is located less than 3 feet from our fence and approximately 27 feet from the building that is most frequently occupied. The noise from this patio can be unbearable at times. And trust me, and if you don't live there, and you're not there on a regular basis, you do not know. When you come home from work at night, you want to relax, you want to enjoy, we want to enjoy our yard outside. It's totally opinion, yes. People have their preferences of music, but we should not be necessarily subjected to that. And perhaps not so, you don't want to do this if you're not wishing to be at a bar. And yes, it is. It has been operating pretty much that way. This is our home. I've lived there for nearly 42 years. We have put blood, sweat, and tears into building this from scratch ourselves. If you haven't gone down there, take a look. I would really, really invite you to do so. The straw bale line parking lot that is their outdoor patio is less than a foot from our fence and partially sits in the access easement to our property. When bands are performing in close proximity, we can't even be at our house. We have to leave. It is so loud, we have to leave. On a Friday night, you've worked all night, you want to come home and relax. You don't want that. They've purchased property commercially closer to the highway. Wonderful. That's where it should be located too. And during the summer, with the consistent stream of RV campers, trailers, fifth wheels, we're subjected to the noise of generators from those RVs running all night long. This happened as recently as Sunday from 7:30 in the evening until I left for work at 8 a.m. The RV parked about 30 yards from our bedroom window ran all night long. How do I know? No one sleeps with a generator running in close proximity. Now, tell me, how is that good for the environment when you have generators running all night long? In regards to fire safety and close proximity of these structures, we believed it necessary to do fire mitigation and removed all the trees and brush along our fence,
hoping that maybe to prevent disaster. We've lived through this before, as I mentioned in my letter. While in the process of doing so, garbage was dumped not only next to our fence, but on our property. The photos I have showed you are proof of that. I'm not certain what they are, but it appears to be leftover processing of grapes. This attracted swarms of yellow jacket wasps, hornets, and bees. Grant worked through it, and he laughed about it. I'm just thankful that he is not allergic, because this really could have ended in something quite serious. We have a dog. We've had a dog from the first time they began occupying the property. Our dog is a watchdog. If you've ever lived on a canyon, you know how important that is. We've had mountain lions as close as a few feet from our home. Killed our cats right there. He's in a fenced-in area. He will bark when people are close. They're a foot. Their patio, they chose to locate it there, a foot from our fence. I've offered to put him in if he's disruptive. However, I came to discover he was being fed. We don't allow our dogs to have rib bones, and who knows what else the people from the patio were throwing over the fence or giving to him. 5 times before I involved law enforcement, I asked them to stop. And to me, this is tantamount to animal abuse. As it stands, I can't even let my dog out. So he has to stay in. We go down twice a day, let him out. How this entity came to be allowed to operate in violation unlawfully of the land use code, and you don't buy a piece of property without knowing how it's zoned. You know how it's zoned. It's likely, in part, from the previous city administration and should never have been allowed to occur. In addition, there are violations of city noise and light ordinances, which to my understanding states that noise and lights have to be contained on one's property. This entity is not a bar and should not be operating as one. And trust me, I live next door, less than 27 feet away. I know how it's been operating. I know the stand-up adult comedy routine they had, and like Sharon, I'm so glad my grandkids were not around to hear that. In addition, is the issue of blocking and obstructing our access, which we have addressed to them numerous times. This is a historic right-of-way. It's a 30-foot wide, and it extends from the frontage road to our homes. It cannot be blocked, parked in, or used in any way, except for egress and ingress, that is, coming and going. When obstructed, whether it's by parked vehicles, an unlawful porta potty, or snow being plowed in the way, it poses a huge safety issue and cannot be allowed to occur. We have graveled and maintained that access for close to 42 years, and it's not designed to support the kind of traffic that it's being used for. After recently consulting a realtor, the devastating impact on our property values would be significant. The decision you make is going to set a precedent for future zoning issues and possible lawsuits. I would ask each of you if this is something that you would want located next to you. Our area is developing, and it's going to continue to develop. Development can be a good thing. We have our own unique attributes and can certainly capitalize on those. We do not necessarily want to be like Durango. However, there is one thing Durango has excelled in, and that's tourism. Tourism, plain and simple, is attracting people into an area to spend money. You on this council have a unique opportunity to see that development take place in a way that's not only safe, but beautifies and enhances in a manner that is attractive to those who have money to spend and aren't just looking for a free place to park. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. All right, next commenter. All right.
Good evening, Council. My name's Kent Lindsay, live at 1201 South Broadway. If you look at your map up there, the frontage road that runs down along the side of Highway 491 there has an average running surface of 22 feet. It's supposedly owned by CDOT. The city won't maintain it, CDOT don't maintain it, it's full of potholes, gravel, even surface rock. As you go south on that frontage road, south of the access that goes up into 1345 South Broadway, there's a hill that's not represented there. The line of sight to there, to the intersection, to the highway, is more than a 10-degree grade, which you can't see coming off that hill, cars coming around the corner. With large motorhomes coming around that corner, they block the entire surface of that roadway. Coming off there, they pose an incredible hazard. Just north of the access have been 2 deaths in that area on the highway. Now, the average running surface from the frontage road up to 1345 is less than 15 feet. And it was gravelled and maintained by us and hospice at one time. We still have maintained our section of road for the last 30-plus years, well, 40-plus years, with gravel and maintenance all year round. The other 2-track that goes down through the field was not an all-weather road, but it was also maintained those years. Now, in those sections of road, you cannot have emergency vehicles passing each other. They will not fit, I know, because I'm a fire chief. I was an EMS captain for 15 years. I was a volunteer fire department volunteer for 20 years. I fought fire down in those canyons two times. And for somebody to come up here and tell us that the fire department's in good shape, they're short-staffed just like everybody else. To have a fire in that canyon today would be more devastating than it was in 1999. Because there's more people down there and the brush is thicker because it burned off and now it's grown back. It's going to come ripping and roaring up through there, and it's going to take all those homes and everything that's there because the fire departments don't have the staffing. There's 2 fire hydrants there, and the flows don't match what's needed to flow, and that's just one start. I pulled the records for 1345. I asked dispatch to give me, there's been 53 responses for service to 1345. You can't, after the P&Z meeting, my wife comes home from that meeting, and we meet a fire truck coming out of there the next day. She couldn't get around the fire truck. She had to back up, let the fire truck through. You can't widen that access road, that frontage road, because of the hill on one side and all the stuff that's in it. There's a hill on the other side. So that's just one access problem. If you look at the map up there also, you will notice on the county side, which is in the green on the left, that's part of that zoned AR, Ag Residential 3 through 9. Part of that other zoning is Ag Residential 35 plus. So that puts residential on 2 sides of that. And a majority of that south or that west side is more lineal feet than is on the east side. To me, this would be a spot zone. We have legal authority from our lawyer says this is a spot zone. Other than that, the noise and all of that, you've already heard. You've already seen a lot of the letters that have come in. So I would ask you not to put this in there, because once it's there, it's going to stay. There's no revision in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Kent. Any more commenters? Okay.
My name is James Williams. I live at 5312 Highway 160-491, about 3 miles south of the area we're talking about. And all I can say is that coming out of the entranceway onto the highway heading south can be a bit tricky, and people in that area to the north of me coming out of town are starting to ramp up speed, and it just seems like an accident waiting to happen. So if you can do anything to mitigate those problems, I would very much appreciate it as a citizen of Cortez and somebody who has to use the improved highway going in and out of town. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, James. All right, any other commenters? All right, seeing none, we'll close this public comment section and move into council discussion. So I think we've got lots of questions. Oh, and we do want to read these. Yeah, so let's, okay, so it's 8:56, right at 9 o'clock we'll start this, because I do want to review these letters to make sure that they're in the record as well. All right. David, do you want to start with you on, do you have your questions? Do you want to start asking? Get us started.
Well, I think there are good things and bad things on both sides. I think, first of all, well, let me put it this way. I think there's a potential to stay there forever once the zoning is changed. And I have concerns for the neighbors as well as the businesses. I appreciate the fact that you're well received by your customers, and that's a good thing. I just am uncomfortable knowing that the people that live and surround you are unhappy, to say the least. So it leaves me ambivalent.
Thank you. Matt, do you have some questions you want to ask?
I might need a little bit of clarification. Nancy, just to be clear, I think my mom, probably more than my dad, said if you have questions, other people might also have the same questions. I just wanted to be crystal clear. The reason that we are talking about this parcel in particular is because of a zone violation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what I also heard was that south of that is where the operation would be moved to at some point. Is that correct? Is that, I think I heard the right thing.
The owner has talked about putting the new operation, I believe, in this area, but I've seen, you know, we don't have an active application for that, so we don't know. The entire red area is currently zoned commercial, so there's nothing that guarantees it to be down in that area.
So I think I heard that that was the intent, was to move the operation to the south. Is that?
That's what I heard.
That's what I heard.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess it just leaves me a little bit confused. I'm wondering why we're making this change for this smaller parcel when in some unknown amount of time in the future, we're going to be developing potentially I'm assuming a larger business, a more robust business, just to the south of that. That would be my first thought. And then in terms of a home-based business, do people actually live on the site in the same building as, and that's what's currently happening now? Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
So they're living in the back, and in the front is the home-based business, for example?
Correct.
Something along those lines. Okay. Those are really the kind of the questions I had. I think, like David said, it's a really difficult situation. I definitely support small business, but I'm still a little bit confused about why we're doing this right now at this time, if there's a plan in the future to move to the south with a more robust business in the future. So I guess that's where,
That's that's a question for the applicant,
Yeah.
not me.
Yeah.
When we issue a zoning violation, we always want to give them ways to correct it.
Yeah.
And the only way to correct this violation was to pull the business back to what was originally approved, which is not the way it's been operating. Okay, so it's down to 4 people at a time on the property, even less. We can go back through that criteria. So they either have to stop operating in the manner they have been, which we were told they have been, remove signage, that kind of thing, until they can make the significant investment of the full-on new winery. So I believe the applicant saw this as a stopgap until they have the funds to fully invest in a brand-new business. It'll be a couple of years out, I would guess, to build a full new building on the property. They felt that this rezoning would allow them to operate closer to the way they are now, expand their business a little bit in the location that it's in now. And that's, I'm not arguing for them, I'm just telling you what I heard and why they might, hopefully answering your question there.
So is the business operating in any capacity at this moment? Retail locations or?
From what I understand, they're still operating under the home business approval.
Okay.
Whether, although we've heard otherwise from the neighbors.
Okay.
Can I ask a clarifying question too? A statement that you made earlier was that even with a rezoning, like the way they're operate, like as a home business, they're not going to be, like nothing's really going to change, correct, with the rezoning?
The rezoning itself doesn't change it. They would have to apply for the site plan and get that approved to be able to expand beyond the very strict home business criteria.
I had some questions about just like the existing compliance status with that home-based business. Is there still signage up? Is it in compliance? Is the existing site, like the patio, all that area that appears to have been developed, has that been developed through city processes?
There's been some confusion about that. When we first noticed them on the violation in October, the signs did come down in a timely manner. I believe there was an inspection today that another kind of sign, another sign was up. And we've heard from the neighbors that perhaps they have been not in full compliance with the 4 people on the site at a time. We haven't observed that, so further investigation is probably needed.
Okay.
Is there anybody else on staff that could speak to the safety of that specific roadway up to?
Yeah, okay, I guess I have a question, because, can you go back to the map? Because I think there's some confusion too when we're talking about the frontage road and an access. So the frontage road runs parallel to the highway, and the driveway that we see, that's a shared access. That's not CDOT or city jurisdiction at all. So the question that I have is, there's commercial property right there. So if this existed building that they used purely for residents and built their business essentially across the street on this access, which is permitted right now, how would that affect that access?
Wait.
Do you know what I'm saying? So like in the red, that's a driveway essentially to multiple homes. If they were to build on the commercial piece that they own, which is still using that same access, how would that affect the access if they
would still be required, and through our site plan review, we would ensure that that access should remain clear at all times.
Okay.
I think that would happen regardless if they try and submit a site plan on, if it got rezoned and they submitted where they are now, or if they moved it, that access easement should be part of the site plan to be protected, improved for the access purposes and not blocked.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess what I'm getting at is a commercial business could exist there anyways, off that access. So if this was to be approved and rezoned, I was just curious how then we go about addressing the access.
Pretty much the same way, depending on which portion of the property were submitted for a site plan for additional development.
Okay. Okay, so keep going, Marlena.
Yeah, I was just curious if there was anybody else who could expand on the safety of that specific roadway.
I think we can say that right now it doesn't meet city standards.
Okay. And then another question I had is, is there, as a matter of process, is there a way to do the commercial zoning at the same time as proposing a site plan? Or does it always have to be subsequent? Like you have to have the commercial zone first before you can do the site plan?
You could do them concurrently. I think most people would want the zoning first to know that it was at least a potential before they would invest in the permitting and approvals that would be needed to get a site plan approved. So in other words, they're going to have to get approval from CDOT for the access, and CDOT will be the ones, the access point off the highway will be the ones who will determine whether or not that's a safe access and issue a permit, perhaps to the city.
So just taking a look at the home occupation permit that was issued to the Wootens, item H talks about noises and stuff like that. So is like music and events and loud noise like that considered like a function of the home occupation if it's in support of their business?
I don't think that music and events could possibly be allowed under the existing home business, because how do you have an event for 4 people?
Okay. I'm just going to state that I have some really deep concerns about the adherence to the home business permit, and I'll leave it at that.
I like new businesses, and I encourage them, and I think this is a good business for the city of Cortez. However, when the property was purchased, it was listed as an R1 residential. Even though it was not permitted, Yellow Car Country Wine began operating a small business. Realizing they were non-compliant, they applied for and received a special use permit. The permit was issued with conditions. Yellow Car Winery has pushed the limits and has violated several of those conditions. Many residents built in that area due to location. It was city living in a cut-tree atmosphere. The area was zoned residential for a reason. If it becomes commercial, it could impact the quality of life and property values for the residents in that area. And my statement is to the city council.
Thank you, Dennis. Okay, I got a whole slew of questions, so. Okay, when a residence shares a property line with commercial, what fence height can you build to? Because I remember a scenario, I think I might have been on the Board of Adjustments and Appeals, so maybe it was a variance, but when a resident was adjacent to commercial, they were allowed to build an 8-foot fence, beyond the 6 standard. Is that something that could happen here just as a mitigating factor if this is rezoned?
Couldn't find that in the code, but beyond the front setback, you can go to 8 feet for a residence. So on a side lot line, for the back portion, you could go to 8 feet.
Okay.
The fencing height limits for commercial are confusing. It only speaks to security fencing and speaks to 7 feet.
Okay, add that to the list of land use code updates. Okay, so if rezoned, what's the timeline, if it was rezoned to commercial tonight, what's the timeline of getting the building up to code, fire inspections, landscaping, the permits? What does that transition look like? Because I think, even if we do approve the rezoning, it's not like the business is in compliance with that either, and there would still need a lot of work to do.
So if it were approved tonight, they would have to prepare the site plan application and submit it. We require a submittal about a month before the planning commission, so there's adequate time to notice neighbors and do the public notice and request agency comments from agencies such as CDOT and our county engineer. So we're a month and a half out, probably, from any planning commission meeting, public meeting, and then from there, it would have to come back in front of you, usually about 3 weeks later.
Okay, so we're talking a few months, essentially. Would it be able to meet the parking requirements if rezoned? And how much parking is required, and can you satisfy that parking with a separate parcel?
No, you should, it needs to be on the parcel. We haven't done the analysis yet, and it would depend on what was proposed. There's quite a bit of parking on the south side of that property, so I don't know. I guess I don't know until it gets submitted.
And then signage, because I know there's a concern about signage there. With a home business, you're not allowed to have any unless it's on a car.
Correct.
So how would that change with the rezoning?
With the rezoning, you could have a commercial sign on the property.
Okay. And they could have one on the highway, because was that one of the?
That would be on a different, that would be an off-premise sign, so that might be only limited to, say, a directional sign.
Okay. I guess then my comment to the council is, to me, this is not spot zoning. It's just basically a boundary adjustment or a migration of a zoning district. Because spot zoning is when it doesn't match anything around it. Okay. So then how would this affect the residential part of the business if it was to become commercial?
Would have to comply with the 50% residential.
It can't be more than 50% residential? Okay, and right now it's at 80%?
Something like that.
Okay. If we were to rezone it and then they were to sell this property, would the next owners who started a business, would they have to go through a site plan?
Yes.
Okay. Do we require wildfire mitigation? Based on the concerns with Hartman Draw and what folks have said about the past?
No, that was a new issue I heard. I don't believe our code has any requirements for wildfire mitigation. Mitigation does occur at the site plan level, though, so we could address that. No, generally, wildfire mitigation, we're much more cautious with residences than we are with commercial properties. So that was a little bit interesting. A residence, you're there in the middle of the night. Evacuation from your residence is different than evacuating a commercial business. So, but it's certainly something that should be addressed.
And then I've noticed and heard that, they have overnight stairs. How would a change to commercial zoning affect that? And is that allowed?
Well, right now, what has been explained to us is people are just staying there. They're not charging them. It's not an RV park. I didn't really know how to address that in a commercial manner if they're letting people stay. RV park regulations, if they wanted to establish an RV park, and they have said that they would like to do that on the commercial part of the property. I guess concern being it could move right in front of those residences. But that's something we'll have to deal with at that time.
Okay. And then I guess I have a question for Pat, our attorney. I think there's a lot of talk about, like future plans of like moving the business and stuff, but can we really take that into account? Because like right now we're looking at a historically commercial used building and whether we bring it into compliance or not, regardless of who owns it and what's.
Yeah, and actually, the character of the existing building isn't necessarily relevant other than to understand what the uses have been on the property in the past in determining whether or not to change the zoning from R1 to the commercial highway zoning. Nancy put the list of items to consider, and there's A through H, and you don't really consider whether the property, whether the building is adequate for a particular use, because if and when the zoning is changed to commercial, as we've discussed, they would have to come back in for a site plan approval. And the site plan process has conditions regarding the structure, whether they're going to build other structures, the parking, the access, all that stuff is considered at the site plan review stage. And so trying to decide whether or not the existing building is adequate for any type of possible commercial use really isn't part of the equation, because they could tear the building down, whether you approve this or not, and start over with a different use, subject to whatever the zoning is at the time. I would say, there was a lot of talk about the spot zoning, and one of the criteria that they look at is whether or not the zoning would, the rezoning would allow a use that is consistent with the master plan. And it's more likely to be considered spot zoning if the rezoning is being done in conflict with what the master plan suggests for the area. So if the master plan suggests that the area become more residential, for example, then rezoning it to commercial appears more as if you're trying to help one individual property owner in ignoring the community as a whole. However, if the master plan says that this area may become more commercial, then you wouldn't have that issue. And Nancy, I'm sure, has done an evaluation of how the master plan relates to this area, but yeah, that's...
Thank you, Pat. And then there was a concern, my last question is, there was a concern about setbacks, and does it meet setbacks currently? Would it with the commercial zoning, and how do you address that if not?
I haven't done that analysis yet, so I don't know if it doesn't, if the building doesn't meet them now, they would need variances. I believe the setbacks are less for commercial than they are for residential, so it's a problem either way, if it's a problem.
All right, does council have any other follow-up questions? Is someone ready to entertain a motion?
I move to deny the request for rezoning from R1 residential single family to C commercial general for the property located at 1345 Broadway with the following findings. There has not been any change of character, installation of new public facilities or other development in the area in the recent past. There is not a need for the proposed zoning in the area given the abundance of vacant commercially zoned land in the area and community. The proposed use is not compatible with the adjacent residential properties, and existing access to the property is not adequate to serve commercial development.
Second.
Do we have any discussion?
Spruill. Kiefhoffer.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Rainey. Yazzie.
Aye.
Medina.
Can you clarify his motion? Was it to deny?
Correct.
Nay?
The motion passes 5-1.
All right. Okay, we're going to move on our agenda. Thank you all for being here tonight and engaging. 6, unfinished business, we have none, so we're going to move on to 7, new business. 7A is ordinance number 1316, Series 2023, presented by Rick Smith.
Thank you. Honorable City Council and Mayor, I'd like to thank you for letting us present this tonight. Before I get started, I'd like to give a thank you and a shout out to the review committee that we had, Council Member Robert Dobry, Kelly Koski with Finance, Pat Coleman, our attorney, and Drew. Without them, we couldn't have got this done and moving forward. So as far as background, as you know, during the 2022 budget process, the city determined that the best way to move forward with the city network was to lease out the Cortez Community Network to a private network operator. We did this by way of a formal RFP process, and the city received those proposals back and clear back in March 25th of 2022. We received 7 responses to our request for proposal, and during that time period, I'd also like to recognize the efforts of Doug Dawson of CCG Consulting. He was invaluable to the city and the evaluation team in guiding us. Anyway, long story short, interview process went on, and I'm proud to say that we have here representatives from Vero, doing business as Clear Networks, and I'd like to introduce Doug Seacat, Evan Biaggi, and Casey Irvin. So I'll let them have a quick little word, and then we'll carry on.
Thanks, council members, and we'll keep our introduction brief. Appreciate Rick and the rest of the team working through this process, and there's quite a bit more work still to be done, but we're excited to keep pressing forward on this. Just quick history, you know, we are not new to the Cortez area. We came down probably about 2 years ago and met with several community leaders and members as well, just trying to understand. Doug and I have been working on Clear Networks and deploying broadband in areas like Montrose and really kind of Midwestern slope areas and developing fiber internet in those communities for quite a while. And so we were looking to kind of expand and bring some of those services and what we've done and worked on, especially our partnerships with the communities that are similar to Cortez up in that area. So we were excited to kind of meet with Cortez and some of the other people and just work on a kind of a regional expansion and efforts down here. Evan is with our partner company Vero, and you'll see that on the lease agreement, but Clear Networks is the primary brand that we've been using and will continue to use on the Western Slope as you know we've served customers and built out our fiber network. Really, we feel like the synergies in our partnership are just you know how we've aligned on certain community issues, things like open access and wholesale programs and how we'll work to continue and manage those, how we partner with communities and several of our existing and previous public-private partnerships in other communities, and just kind of our experience there, I think will lend helpful to what we want to do in Cortez, and just our speed to build. We would really like to get into Cortez and really try and deploy as quickly as possible. Just help with, you know, maintaining the excitement around a new utility. There's a lot of frustration and inconvenience that can come with development. We understand that very well. We have our own construction company and construction management group. So trying to mitigate those inconveniences, work with the public, work with community leaders like yourselves, work with other providers, and just kind of have an open, you know, kind of community collaboration on bringing a new utility like fiber internet into the community. So Appreciate everything. There's plenty more work to be done, lots more information, so we would just encourage you guys, if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, reach out to one of us, reach out to some of our staff. We'll be down here quite a bit working with you guys and just be involved in the community, and that's kind of our hope and promise, is to just have that relationship with you guys as well as the surrounding communities. Thank you.
Thanks for making the trip despite the storm.
Yeah, just barely made it.
Forgive me, I forgot to recognize Brian. He also helped out, so thank you, Brian. I think you guys can know kind of the terms. $1.8 million to the city in the fiscal year 2023 with a $200,000 escrow for the lease of the network, and staff recommends moving this on to second reading February 28th. Drew, do you have anything to add?
No, Mayor and Council, I think you've hit the high points on it. The only thing that I think I would add, Council, is that this is just the introduction part, of course, the first reading. There will be a full presentation by both city staff and Clear Networks Vero at the 28th meeting, right before the public hearing.
Well, this has been a culmination of a lot of years and a lot of work, and it definitely wasn't a direct path, but I'm really glad that we're here and we're really excited, and you know, excited about the customer service aspect and the locality, you know. So thank you all for your hard work in getting to this. We're really excited, so at least I am. Do we have any questions, my council, or? Okay.
Well, so for the community, when we started this, there were a few things that we kind of wanted to make sure that we took care of as part of this process. One was to hopefully have fiber internet built out to the entire community of Cortez. Another was to avoid excessive costs to the city of Cortez and recoup the money in the CCN that had already been spent. And then the third part of that was also to find a partner who respected the existing ISPs and local companies, and that wanted to work on an open access wholesale type model as part of that. And I think we very successfully got all three of those in Vero and Clear Networks. Unless anybody else has any questions, I can make a motion. With that, I'll make a motion for council to approve on first reading ordinance number 1316, series 2023, authorizing and approving a lease of the city's fiber broadband network to Vero Broadband LLC, and to set the ordinance for public hearing and second reading on February 28th, 2023.
Second.
All right, and I'd just like to invite the public to come to our February 28th meeting and make comments if they have any. So motion made by Dobry and seconded by Yazzie.
Rainey.
Aye.
Spruill.
Aye.
Kiefhoffer.
Aye.
Yazzie.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to 7B, which is our intergovernmental agreement for dispatch services, presented by Chief Knuckles.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I come before you tonight to seek the mayor's signature for the intergovernmental agreement for dispatch services. So what that does is that gives Cortez a seat at the table with the Dispatch Accountability Committee, and commits to dispatch that we will participate in the dispatch services. The agreement hasn't changed from the 22 agreement other than 23. It's the exact same agreement, so it's pretty straightforward. Along with seeking the mayor's signature on this, I would also ask council to appoint their designee, or you as council, you as the government are welcome to sit on that accountability committee. Because we operate the dispatch center, Cortez does get two individuals to represent So
Who's been it?
myself and Kelly Koski are who you appointed to represent you in '22.
Dennis, do you have a question? Okay. Yeah, yeah, because it sounds like Dennis is interested in being appointed. Do we have two people? Who else? I mean, what if staff wants, I guess, what was the plan?
You know, we've actually had Kelly Koski on there to help with the financial portion of this, which was an issue at the time. It might be a really good time to relieve her. You know, I'll just throw out there, she's got plenty on her plate. We still will have to rely on her for financial support on our side, but this will take a lot of burden off of her. And I'll think I'm safe in speaking for Chief Knuckles and we would more than welcome Councilmember Spruill. He's got a history on this. He can do nothing but help us.
Has Pat, have you had a chance to review this agreement?
Yes, I've looked at it, starting like tomorrow, where I'm going to go through it kind of with a fine-tooth comb. I think there are some updates that we can make, but as the chief said, it's essentially the same agreement with the date changed, and it's been operating, from my understanding, well, but I certainly, you know, as part of my overall review of existing contracts, I've got some changes, but you know, it's already February, and I didn't want to drag this thing out any further than we have to. So, you know, I think it's ready to be implemented for the 2023.
So any updates would be for the 2024 version?
Correct.
The updated 2024 version. Thank you.
Okay.
The one other thing I wanted to at least say in public is that I serve on the hospital district board as well, and this came up before the hospital district board, but I recused myself from that so that I could stay on and vote on this here.
Thanks for letting us know. All right, do we have a motion, and can that motion remember to include assigning, what was the term, delegates? Designate.
Designee, yeah,
Okay,
that works for me.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion that council approve the intergovernmental agreement for dispatch services and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement, as well as assigning Dennis Spruill and Chief Knuckles as the representatives for the city.
Second.
All right, motion made by Yazzie and seconded by Dobry.
Kiefhoffer. Aye. Rainey.
Aye.
Yazzie.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Spruill.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. Thank you, Dennis, for stepping up and being willing to do that, and I appreciate that you're always ready to be really involved. It's a great team member. Okay, we'll move on to 7C, Grant Resolution Airport Flight Simulator Grant Initiative, presented by Jeremy Patton, our airport manager.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council, City of Cortez, and County. So here tonight, just real quick, hopefully. Back in November, I applied for a grant. It was kind of last minute notice by the state, so I wanted to jump on it. And in a few days, we got several letters of support from Mancos School District, Classic Air Medical, Armstrong Consultants, our master planners, Garver, the engineers, and the Homegrown Talent Initiative coordinator at the school as well. So that was a good push in a matter of 4 days. So with that is a competitive grant opportunity, and the state ultimately decided on Cannon City, which is Fremont County Airport, and Kit Carson Airport, as well as Cortez, to receive a grant. It went back and forth between being 90% federal or state share and 10% local to 100, and then back to 90 and 10. So that's why we're showing a 90-10 split on that. So the airport's going to front the cost of the simulator in total from our equipment budget. We've got about 45 in that account. Then we'll get reimbursed through this agreement. It's basically a reimbursable agreement known as a grant resolution that the state calls it. They'll give us that 90% reimbursement. with the requirements that we maintain the simulator to a high degree of standard calibration, certification through the FAA, so that the pilots that are using it are certified and can log the time legally up to a certain percentage of their training or currency. So that benefits the obvious, local pilots, regional pilots, classic air, maybe they need some currency on an instrument procedure. And then for new students, flight training, introduction flights, the local nonprofit EAA chapter can have access and benefit from this. So we're going to stage it in the airport classroom initially, and then just build it from there. We have to develop a point of sale system for it as part of the agreement, and for obvious reasons we want to recoup our investment in this back. And then we maintain a pretty tight logbook on that simulator. And then we report that to the state as part of the grant assurance. Other than that, it's a pretty good deal for us for obvious reasons. I mean, regionally, there's not a simulator. The closest one that I know of is in Albuquerque at Del Sol Aviation at the Albuquerque, the big airport, Sunport. Grand Junction, I believe, has a pretty minimal, basic training device. This is an advanced aviation training device that we're getting. So this could be huge for this area. I know a lot of people are excited about it. Flight schools, locally, Farmington, Durango, Del Norte, Alamosa even. So this could provide a really good foundation to improving the community and economic pieces that the airport can play into our area, education primarily, right? So staff recommends that the city council approve and sign the grant agreement with the Colorado Division of Aeronautics Aviation Grant Program, so that we can move forward with this flight simulator program. Any questions?
No, this is awesome, Jeremy. Thank you. It's an amazing turnaround, and I'm really glad to hear all the stakeholders you were able to partner with and get letters of recommendation. This is great for youth engagement and workforce development and economic development, so. All right. Cool. So when you say 90%, that means we're going to front the $43,000 and then they'll reimburse us $38,800.
Correct. Yeah. So I'll be out $43,1270, which we could recoup that relatively quick. But obviously, this is a great investment. So I mean, and then it's a good foundation as well. So the goal would be to springboard off of this type of simulator later when we have the facility to do so, like a new FBO or an additional wing of a flight school perhaps, and we have the space, you can get a full motion simulator. And a lot of these programs are graduating programs. Like you justify a use of a simulator and it's showing that it's being used. Even outside instructors have shown interest. Guys that teach for FedEx in Houston, there's a local guy that lives here. He travels. He wants to teach with this because he can certifiably teach it and sign off instrument procedures and add-on ratings that allow you to use certain portions of your training on a simulator. So it varies with what you're doing. A private pilot can only get 2.5 hours, but an instrument pilot that's going for that rating can do 20 of their hours on a simulator. So the more advanced ratings you get, the more simulator options, the more that's available to you, especially when we have high wind days, bad weather days, and you're not able to get in an aircraft. And it saves a lot of money. I didn't mention these things can rate from $25 an hour to $250 an hour, depending on the complexity. We want to reflect our area and not charge an exorbitant, a huge amount it'll deter people, but we don't want to charge $10 an hour, So we're going to figure that out as part of that point of sale option. But again, back to what I was saying, this could be a springboard into a more advanced system later. And we could be feeding pilots into the pipeline because, like we mentioned, there's shortages in every industry, and pilots are notorious to be, or the industry is notorious for being short of pilots. So this could be a springboard for that.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Jeremy. Do we have a motion from council?
I move that council approve the Colorado Division of Aeronautics Discretionary Aviation Grant Resolution and authorize the mayor to sign the resolution, which outlines the grant assurances and justification for an advanced aviation training device at the Cortez Municipal Airport.
Second.
Motion made by Spruill and seconded by Rainey.
Dobry.
Aye.
Kiefhoffer. Spruill.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Yazzie.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. All right. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, council.
Okay, we're moving on to 7D, responses to an RFP for a water rate study service, presented by Brian Peckins, our Director of Public Works.
Madam Mayor, City Council, Public Works has recently developed a request for proposals for services related to municipal water rate study to collect all data necessary for the evaluation of the city's current and projected 10-year fair water market rates on future operation and maintenance needs. We had 5 qualified bidders, and some of the things we're going to look at is future maintenance requirements, capital improvements, growth consumption, water conservation models, block rates, and then we're also going to look at the future water rates to meet the demands of all city users, to include the Ute Mountain Tribe and Montezuma County Water District Number 1. We're going to look at 4 different scenarios, and we're expecting the results by the middle of July, so we'll have this information for the upcoming budget season. The staff recommends the council award the project for a municipal water rate study to SEH at their estimated cost of $32,430. Any questions?
What was the original budget number that you had planned on for this?
40,000.
Okay, thank you.
I noticed they were the lowest bidder. Are they awarded because of that, or because they can offer as much as anybody
Both.
else?
Madam Mayor, I would add that as part of your motion, you'll want to approve the professional services agreement that retains the bidder that is being recommended by the staff. And I would add that this professional services agreement follows the new format that we have been discussing. So it's being put into performance now.
And then, I'm sorry, did you explain why we're doing a water rate study?
Well, the reason we're doing it is just to make sure that, we're charging fair rates, and also we're going to look at a series of alternatives, 4 different scenarios, kind of like the status quo. We're also going to look at if we wanted to increase the amount of water line replacement and some other scenarios. So we'll have some alternatives we can look at and see what we want to do as a city toward meeting our water challenges.
All right, yeah, I wanted that to be captured by the public, that we've got a lot of aging infrastructure that needs to be replaced, and how do we pay for that while also not just skyrocketing rates?
Right, so we'll have a range of alternatives, and, we'll pick something, which makes sense for the city.
Did they say anything about like public outreach?
They are required to have at least one public outreach meeting as part of the study.
Okay. An added benefit that I'd want from this is also incentives, or I guess, to incentivize people to use less. Yeah. Kind of as a secondary goal. Do you think that they would be able to
That's part
incorporate
of
that?
that's looking at block rates so that the users that use more will be charged more, and people who use less will be charged less.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion, or? Okay.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that council approve the professional services agreement with Short Elliott Hendrickson, Inc., to complete a municipal water rate study and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement.
Second.
Oh, sorry. A motion made by Kiefhoffer and seconded by Yazzie or Rainey? Rainey.
Spruill. Aye. Yazzie.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Kiefhoffer.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. I apologize, my bedtime's 9:30, so I'm shutting down. Okay, so we're going to move on to 7E. Thank you, Brian. We're going to move on to 7E, the 2022 60-inch zero-turn mower bid results, presented by Rick Smith, our General Services Director.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, the 2023 Equipment Fund budget provides $18,000 for the purchase of a 60-inch zero-turn mower to be used by the parks in our park system. This unit will replace unit number 502, which will be auctioned off after delivery of a new unit. We sent out bids, and bids were received on January 25th. We received 3 bids from 2 vendors. Pastesio Brothers #1, John Deere at $18,161 was the low bidder. Staff recommends that council consider awarding it to the low bidder in the bid amount of $18,161.
So the first 2 bids were by the same company. Are those just 2 different John Deeres?
Yeah, 2 different models, yes. ma'am.
Okay. When do you estimate this arriving?
Honestly, I forgot. Delivery April 23rd, so I would imagine April, May.
Okay. Just in time to use it.
Yeah.
Any questions? Okay. Motion?
I'll make a motion to award the 2022 60-inch zero-turn mower bid to Pastesio Brothers #1 bid in the amount of $18,161.
Second?
Motion made by Dobry and seconded by Kiefhoffer.
Yazzie.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Kiefhoffer.
Aye.
Spruill.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Okay, we're moving on to 7F, letter of support for the Montezuma County Homelessness Prevention Coalition.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Drew Sanders, City Manager. We received a request from the Pinion Project on behalf of the Montezuma County Homeless Prevention Coalition for a letter of support in their seeking the Transformational Homeless Response Grant. I don't have a lot of information on what all that grant entails, but we have a letter prepared that is attached that we're requesting the council grant the mayor authorization to sign that letter. And we were actually, if this happens, Mayor, we really could use that tonight. If we could get your signature, is due tomorrow.
Okay. Council have any questions? Feelings?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that council authorize the mayor to sign the letter of support for the Transformational Homelessness Response Grant being submitted by the Pinion Project on behalf of the Montezuma County Homelessness Prevention Coalition.
Second.
Motion made by Kiefhoffer, seconded by Yazzie.
Kiefhoffer.
Aye.
Spruill.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Yazzie.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. All right, 7G, change of location application for a hotel and restaurant liquor license. Linda?
Good evening, City Council. Wiggling Pig has applied to relocate their business from 44 West Main Street to 76 South Beach Street. As required by state statute, the local licensing authority is required to hold a public hearing on the change of location for the hotel and restaurant liquor license that they currently have. Public notice has been given by posting the premise, and notice will be placed in the Cortez Journal. Staff requests that a public hearing date of February 28th, 2023 be set for the public hearing, and that the neighborhood boundaries be set as the city limits.
When you state like it's been posted, is it posted at the new address, the old address, or both?
It's posted at the new address on a window facing out to the public.
Interesting, okay. No discussion? Motion?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that council set a public hearing date of February 28, 2023 for the review of a change of location application for a hotel and restaurant liquor license for Wiggling Pig LLC, DBA Wiggling Pig, to be located at 76 South Veach, Cortez, and set the neighborhood boundaries as the Cortez city limits.
Second.
Motion made by Kiefhoffer, seconded by Dobry.
Rainey.
Aye.
Yazzie.
Aye.
Kiefhoffer.
Aye.
Spruill.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, we're on 7H now, the amendment to the city attorney employment agreement.
Yes, Mayor and Council, 2 weeks ago, the council underwent the city attorney's 6-month evaluation, which is per city policy. We do a 6-month and then again a 1 year. At that time, council instructed me to prepare an agreement that would be an addendum to his contract that would increase his salary from $130,000 a year to $140,000 a year, effective December 20th, 2022, which was actually his 6-month date. So I submit that to the council for approval, or to request approval.
Well, we're so glad to have you on our team, Pat, so. Are any questions? Motion?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that council approve the amendment to the city attorney employment agreement and increase the compensation for Mr. J. Patrick Coleman, city attorney, from $130,000 to $140,000, effective December 20th, 2022.
Second.
Motion made by Kiefhoffer and seconded by Spruill.
Kiefhoffer.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Spruill.
Aye.
Yazzie.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. Okay, moving on. 8, no draft resolutions or ordinances. 9, how about a city attorney report?
No report this evening.
Okay. City manager report?
Yes, Mayor, I do in fact have a report, but based upon the hour, I would request leave to forego that this evening. It will be posted on the city website, and it's been turned over to the city clerk to be part of the public record.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, city council committee report, mayor report on the workshop. Our workshop was 3 executive sessions, 1 for legal advice on the CCN, 2 was negotiations for CCN, and 3 was goal setting for our city attorney. Okay, other board reports. Dennis? Arlena, none?
We had a historic preservation board meeting and the beginning planning for Historic Preservation Day.
Oh, fun. All right.
I just want to bring up that this month we will be having a virtual meeting, but if anyone from the public would like the report or any information, they can contact anybody on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board or contact me directly, and I'd be happy to share that with them.
Great, thank you. David?
The Arts Committee had a meeting the first week in January, and or February.
All right. I have no, is that it?
We're hoping to make a presentation of accomplishments and goals set for this coming year, and so we're shooting for that to happen next meeting.
Yeah, so we'll get to hear from the Arts Committee at our next meeting, February 28th. Right? Great.
Correct.
Okay, I have no board reports, no other items of business. The last section is public participation. Do we have anyone else in the public that needs to get up and, or wants to provide comment? Okay. All right, motion to adjourn. I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, Yazzie and Dobry. Aye.
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 Aye. All right, thank you all so much for being here this late. I hope you make it home safely. Thankful for the snow, but obviously, be careful.